In the previous section, we analyzed the traps and biases that exist in our self-awareness. The reason we are able to recognize these issues is because we, as humans, are capable of thinking and excel at it. In fact, it is our ability to think that has allowed us to survive and thrive. Our thinking is essentially our survival ability. Our thoughts reflect and project the external world into our brains, allowing us to simulate the workings of the external world and make decisions to guide our actions. As the French author Antoine de Saint-Exupéry said in The Little Prince, a single event can awaken within us a stranger totally unknown to us. To live is to be slowly born. Have you ever wondered how our thinking achieves this? In this lecture, I will share with you the medium of thought, language. Language is the medium of thought. Can you imagine a day without using any language? Not using language does not mean you don't say a word and remain silent. Not using language means your brain's thinking also comes to a halt. This is because our thinking is a collection of ideas connected together, and language is what carries them. Therefore, you can imagine a day without emotions, a day without action, but you cannot imagine a day without language, because your thinking is like a river that cannot stop, cannot be thirsty. Language not only carries our thoughts, but also shapes them to a certain extent. For example, snow is very important in the lives of Eskimos, so they have more than a dozen words to describe different states of snow. Therefore, in the Eskimo language, they can convey more precise information about snow. On the other hand, some languages are very ambiguous. For example, the word love is used in various contexts. We love our mother, we love our country, we love our lover, we love our work. However, the meaning of love in these different contexts is completely different and can easily lead to ambiguity. Based on these observations, the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis was proposed in psychology. Language determines thought, and ultimately determines culture. This hypothesis has two main points: linguistic determinism and linguistic relativity. Let's introduce them separately. First, linguistic determinism. The core idea of linguistic determinism is that language determines our perception of the world because language has the ability to self-form and self-create. What does this mean? It means that our thinking is completely determined by our mother tongue, because we can only describe and understand the world based on the vocabulary and structure of our mother tongue. Therefore, if we have different languages, we will have different thinking and different worldviews, and ultimately we will have different societies. This hypothesis was fully demonstrated in George Orwell's utopian novel, 1984. George Orwell created a fictional society in which people's thinking was controlled by inventing a new language. The biggest feature of this new language is that it makes it impossible for people to have thoughts that oppose this society. For example, there are no words for overthrowing the government, robbery, or murder in this language system. People in this society cannot describe these crimes and anti-government behaviors in language, and they cannot imagine these things in their minds, let alone take action. Therefore, people who grew up in this new language environment became impossible to oppose the government and commit crimes. In the novel, when everyone learned the new language and forgot the old language, those heretical thoughts, those thoughts that deviated from the principles advocated by this society, lost the basis of language, became a sourceless water, and could no longer be produced. This is the first point of the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, linguistic determinism. By controlling language, you can control thinking, and by controlling thinking, you can control action. The second hypothesis is linguistic relativity. Linguistic relativity means that different languages cannot represent the reality of the same society. This statement contains two meanings. First, the content of a culture can only be fully expressed in the language of that culture. The second meaning is that if a concept in a culture is explained in a language with a different cultural background, the meaning will be different. At least the content evoked in people's minds is different. Here are two examples. For example, we Chinese use rice plant, rice, and cooked rice to represent rice with shell, rice without shell, and cooked rice respectively, while Americans only use one word, rice. So you can see the importance of rice in Chinese culture. Conversely, Americans use more than 10 names such as ribs, fillets, sirloin, and beef tenderloin to refer to beef steaks made from different parts of the cow, while Chinese only have one word for beef. Therefore, different languages define different thinking and even different cultures. Since different languages correspond to different thinking and different cultures, the complete destruction of a civilization is not burning down houses or destroying ancestral worship, but interrupting the language of that nation. Therefore, the most enthusiastic thing that colonizers do is not allowing the people in the colony to speak their own mother tongue, but to speak the language of the colonizer. Through language colonization, thought colonization and cultural colonization are achieved, and finally the inheritance of the colony is completely eliminated. The limitation of the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis is that although many pieces of evidence have verified it, further research has found that this hypothesis is too extreme. Language does influence our thinking, but it does not completely determine our thinking. The influence of language on our thinking is in abstract concepts and big logic, such as law, freedom, and dignity. However, our thinking about concrete concepts that reflect our direct sensory experience, such as mountains, thunder, and snowflakes, is less influenced by language. Users of different languages have similar basic processes and basic concept categories for understanding the world, forming similar basic values, such as human love for nature and disgust for war. Therefore, a more correct concept is that language, thinking, and culture are intertwined, influencing each other and growing together.